for today. We are going to be taking a peek at how we deal with wages and salaries. Those are our two main ones today. So a lot of this, I'm hoping, is going to be stuff that you've seen before, heard before, and are just kind of getting a quick refresher of. Business-wise, income, money that you earn from work or investments or commissions or allowances. We earn incomes for doing a job. Okay, I earn an income for being a teacher here. It can be a wage, which typically would be by the hour, or it can be a salary, which is what I do, which is basically, here's how much we're going to give you for the year. The amount of time, it could be anything. You know, whatever it takes to get the job done. So, the wage, again, typically is going to be paid at an hourly rate. There are some jobs out there now that pay at a daily rate. Spit that out, Hardy. So the greater the number of hours, the higher the wage. You're like, yep. Now, wages are paid weekly or, oh, here comes a term you may not have caught before, fortnightly, which basically means every 2 weeks. Not the game, but it just is another way of saying every 2 weeks, or you could say bi-weekly would be another way we could say that. And so the simplest way to look at this is going to be, you know, if we're looking weekly, and I don't know how many places out there anymore pay, it used to be almost always when you would go to work, you'd get paid every 2 weeks. For those of you with jobs out there, how often do you get paid? Bi-weekly? Okay. Yeah. Because I've noticed, and this has put me into shock at some of the places, there are places now that are paying weekly. There are places in the area that are paying daily. And I'm like, how would you know, like, how to take the tax and stuff out? Like, on the instant, like, hi, I just got off work. Here's your $52.34 or whatever you're going to get. I'm like, that's kind of weird, but okay, you're kind of used to the regular every other week thing. So, again, hours worked outside the normal work period. Now, that can mean a couple of different things too. That can mean something like when you go over 40 hours, let's call that overtime, okay, and we'll get into that. Sometimes that can be something that's called holiday or weekend pay, which we're also going to get into. Sometimes if you're willing to go in and work on a holiday, you'll make more money. Or they'll give you an additional bonus amount if you're working on a Sunday or a Saturday when you're not supposed to, or something like that. Whereas the salary, it's not really that tricky at all. You're just going to get, here's your amount of money divided into this many paychecks. Here it is. And again, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, most of us, though, are in that every 2 weeks type of idea. So, just to make sure one time again we got this, because fortnight is a strange way of putting it, especially since most of us think of that as the game. So, that also can be written as bi-weekly. You know, if I say sometime, hey, you're working, you know, you're getting paid bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. Or just saying every 2 weeks. So, again, we've kind of got this breakdown by month, by week, by 2 week periods, and by year. So, this is where we got to pay attention too, because sometimes people are going to talk to us about money or income, and if we're not careful, something can sound really bad or really good, and it's just the opposite. You know, if I'm telling you you're getting a certain amount of money, and it sounds like a big amount, but I'm telling you get it monthly, versus, well, that's a piddly amount, but you're getting it weekly, you get it 4 times as much. Well, in that case, 40 times as much. That's something you got to be watching out for. So if I'm looking, if I know how much I make in a year, and I want to know how much I make in a month, divide by 12. Or how much I make in a week, I divide by 52. But if I know how much I make per month and I want to know how much I make per year if somebody asked, maybe I'm filling out tax forms, maybe I'm filling out some other sort of a form that I need to know, I'd multiply that number by 12 or multiply that number by 52. So all these things can interact with each other depending on what information I have and what information I'm trying to find. So, again, just making sure that we've got the language the same. Annual, once a year. How much do you make every year? Monthly, how much do you get each month? 2 weeks, weekly. We've got to keep that stuff straight because people will try and mess with you and hose you over if you're not watching. So, okay, let's start actually doing some math here. Like, dang, Kurt, you're just kind of flying. Yeah, some of these pages I put in here this time because they explain things thoroughly, and I think that might end up helping. So we're going to find out. So Susan's first job. Oh, Susan. $7.75 an hour. Somebody call the labor department. If she works 38 hours each week, calculate her weekly income. You're like, okay, this isn't going to be that hardy. If I'm getting $7.75 an hour and I work 38 hours, be careful because it's going to be tempting as you go. So $294.50. There are going to be situations, okay, where you'll see something per hour and hours like this, and then it'll say something like calculate the monthly income. So I still have to be watching the language to make sure it stays consistent. Okay, she works that each week. Calculate her weekly income. Okay, those are the same. I can keep that pretty level, and that won't be bad. But then we change up a little bit. We get a little more to think about. Tim earns $1,900 per fortnight every 2 weeks, working 38 hours per week. Molly works 37 hours to earn $982 per week. Who has the higher hourly rate of pay? Okay. So Tim gets $1,900 every 2 weeks. So if I wanted to see what Tim got weekly, I could just divide. I could do 1,900 divided by 2. Okay, so Tim is getting $950 per week, but it goes further than that because we're looking for the hourly rate of pay. So Tim works 38 hours a week. So we're going to divide it one more time. We're breaking it down further. And we see that Tim is going to be making $25 per hour because over here the weeks cancel each other out. Not bad. Not bad, Tim. So there, I couldn't just do one step and get to my answer. I had to go from 2 weeks to 1 week to hourly, unless there was other ways I could do it. I could multiply the hours per week. I could have doubled that and done 76 and been fine, but otherwise, this works okay. Molly, this is real straightforward. She earns $982 in a week. She works 37 hours. These employers trying to keep us from full-time benefits, I'm telling you. So she makes about $26.54. So Molly is making more per hour. So a little more work with Tim, a little less with Molly, but we end up at the same place. We want to end up at weeks and hours, is what we're basically trying to see here to make those comparisons. So again, seeing how this goes. Now, let's change up a little again. See, there's lots of ways you're going to find out quickly that these adjust, and we just got to be able to go with. So Jimmy earns a salary of $42,400 per year. Also can be called per annum, which is, now you're getting into some of the Latin with it, but per year is what most of us humans talk about. So again, how much does he earn each week? There's 52 weeks in a year. Each 2 weeks, 26 times in a year, or each month. Same value I start with, it's just a different number that I'm dividing by. So it just depends on how impressive you want to sound to your friends. And I normally will tell people, go ahead and put in here what you're looking at per week and label, so if somebody else is looking at it later, they can actually know, well, is that a week, a month, how's this working? And you can see. But the only thing that's going to change each time is the number we're dividing by. And if you want to call it bi-weekly instead of a fortnight, I'd said again that I was going to try and start bringing in some international flavors to this too, because the world has become so globally available to everybody with working. Fortnights tend to happen more often like in Australia and in that area, the Philippines and some of that stuff. We don't normally talk that way, but still, you have to be ready just in case. And then finally, monthly, 35, 33, 33. That's a lot of threes. And again, you always want to be able to readily do these because there are job forms. There are, what was your old pay weekly, monthly? And you've got to be able to calculate this to be accurate. Because sometimes when you're filling out job forms, if you tell somebody, hey, my last job I was making, $35,000 a year, and they're looking at this, they're going, ooh, so if we offered them 40, they're going to think this is good, but even though we'd offer up to 50, you want to make sure you're letting people know that you're worth what you're worth as you're doing that. And just like we said before, we can go both ways with this. If I know the total salary, and I want to get weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, I can divide. If I know how much I make on a specific amount, $4,900 per month, calculate the annual salary. Well, months, there's 12 of them. So I would take my monthly salary times 12 to get the annual. So I'm going from a smaller unit, a month, to annual, which is like a year. But here I'm going from monthly to weekly. So since there's typically 4 weeks in a month, I know sometimes there's 5, but typically we're going to do it this way. We would divide by 4 to get to weekly because it's a shorter time frame. Okay? Larger time frame, we multiply. Shorter time frame, we're just going to divide. If I can get back on the screen here. Again, we're asking for weekly. So you're going to have the examples here in that last page where that flow chart was, kind of describing, am I dividing, am I multiplying? It depends on what direction I'm going, but this kind of lets me work through that, okay? So that's basically all we're going to kind of get into today. I'm not going to go crazy and do like all 7 of these at once, because that's just a really bad idea. So your job to work with here for practice, and it's going to seem like a lot at the start, but trust me, I'm not asking a ton here, is to go 5 through 7. Most of these questions will have like 1 or 2 mini pieces to them, if even that. But use the examples that you've had in the last couple of pages that we've done to figure out those earnings. And again, I'll have the key up front. I got the keys online already for these. And if you just want to check something with me, we can roll you through that and make sure that we've got you in good shape.